Everybody good? Get started? Whoa, hot mic. Good evening, everybody. Are we good with the stream, I take it? I hope everybody's able to join us that is joining us online. So, welcome. Thank you for being here. I am Lee Snellgrove. I'm the director of One Colombia for Arts and Culture. And thanks for joining us in this fantastic art space, one of the premier art spaces in Colombia, South Carolina, for this special event. So I want to thank the state newspaper. They are streaming this event tonight, and they are also allowing us to have Chris Trainer be our moderator tonight. And they've been a great partner to work with on this. And I want to thank the Koger Center. Obviously, you met some of the staff on your way in. It's very wonderful for them to allow us this space and then work with us to be able to stream this event as well. So we're going to set the tone tonight, and I'm going to have our city poet laureate come on, and he's going to read a poem. So please welcome Poet Laureate Ed Madden.
I'm going to read the poem that I wrote for the new flag that was adopted last year. I was supposed to read it at that first council meeting that was not canceled, but I guess shut down because of COVID. So this will be the first time I've read it. Flag, a leaf, a wing, a sail, something lifted, lifting, something new. What does it mean, he asked. By which he means, what do you see? 3 rivers come together, a road stretches toward the horizon, a lane of light, of white into the distance, which is the future. A lane of blue to remind you of sky and water and who we were. The shadow of hills flares against the sky or forest, another blue beyond us. And beyond that, a light in a dark sky, a guide, talisman, beacon, star. The horizon is who we are. Thanks.
All righty. Thank you, Ed. That was wonderful. So a little bit about tonight. I'm going to introduce Chris here in a moment, but we have about 2 or 3 longer format questions. I guess it's still a fairly short answer time, but that Chris will ask. Each candidate will have about 2 minutes to respond. We do have a timekeeper out front, so you'll be able to see the marker as well and kind of gauge. You've got 3 mics there, so just kind of share whatever one's closest to you. We'll also have some very short answer questions. That might just mean you signal or that you have an opportunity to kind of say 1 or 2 words about to respond to. And then in the last half hour, we're going to try and be able to have at least 1 or 2, maybe more if the opportunity arises, to answer some questions from the public. We've had some folks here provide some questions tonight, and I'm sure we'll have a few that come in online that I'm going to hand to Chris, so he'll have some to be able to ask of you. So I'd like to introduce our moderator tonight. And tonight we are joined by Chris Trainer. And Chris has been working for newspapers in South Carolina for more than 16 years, including previous stops at the Greenwood Index Journal and the Columbia Free Times. He's the winner of numerous South Carolina Press Association awards, including honors in column writing, government beat reporting, profile writing, food writing, election coverage, and more. And he's also my favorite evangelist of the gospels of pizza and chocolate chip pizza and upstate style hot dogs. So I'll welcome Chris to the stage and he can get us started tonight.
Thanks to Lee for that kind introduction and for working hot dogs into that introduction. Always a classy affair. Tough to follow Ed Madden. Ed Madden is our city's poet laureate is always so on point and so elegant in his words, and so it was an honor to follow him tonight. We have 8, I believe, of our city council candidates here this evening. for 2 different seats that are up for grabs. And I've had an opportunity to speak to all of them and interview them over the course of weeks and getting to know some of them. And they're all very sincere in their candidacies. And I look forward to what they have to say about the arts and culture, which are sort of the thriving heartbeat of this city and what makes Colombia, Colombia. For the first question, if you will, when you go up, tell us both your name and what seat that you're running for before answering the question. For this first one, we'll have 2 minutes to speak on it. What is your current perception of the quality, variety, and accessibility of the arts in Colombia? And what is your vision for arts and culture in our city over the next 5 to 10 years? So again, what's your current perception of the quality, variety, and accessibility of the arts in Colombia? And what's your vision for the arts and culture in our city for the next 5 to 10 years? For this first one, we'll send the questions back and forth as we go on through the night. But for the first one, we'll start down there with Miss Herbert, and then we'll come this way. Oh, and little housekeeping. I'm sorry. We have our timer right here. He will hold up a sign at 45 seconds. He'll hold up a sign at 15 seconds, and then time. And then 5 seconds beyond time, I come after you. Sorry, just a little housekeeping.
I'm sorry, I hope y'all didn't hear me laugh. Good evening, my name is Tina Herbert, and I'm running for the District 1 seat. My current perception of the variety and accessibility of arts and arts activities, I think that we are better than where we used to be, and I think that we have a long way to go. I often tell people, and it's a little known secret, that I was a violinist for about 10 years. And I became a violinist because I was in the Richland School District 1's renowned strings program. And the legendary Freddie Grace called me up one day after I played for years and said, would you go to college for a scholarship? Would you play your violin to get a scholarship? And I had never in my life thought about playing the violin for a scholarship, but me and my mama just couldn't agree to where we wanted to go. And so I auditioned and ended up going to a school that I'd never been to before, and was a violinist, got to play on the stage with Bobby McFerrin and the like. And so I personally know, because the big part of that was the only thing that me and my mother could agree on was that college was free for me because of that scholarship and because I played the violin. So I personally understand why it's important, and that's why I also understand that we need to do more to make sure that all children have the ability to learn, especially at a young age, different types of instruments. I remember in Richland 1 being able to buy my daughter's art for about $50 and making her feel like she'd really done something really great. So we have a few things that we've been doing, but I think that we really need to do a lot more. And the way to do that is to invest more funds into those opportunities. And I also, in the next 5 years, would really hope to see more artists that aren't starving artists and who have sustainable businesses that they can really enjoy.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Krista Williams. I'm a candidate for Columbia City Council District 1. My current perception of the art within the city is a wonderful perception. We have so many opportunities for art in Columbia. When I drive through the city and see the murals that are around the city, all of the whimsical art that is running down Main Street, we have artists that showcase in Soda City. We have art galleries in the Vista. We have art all around us. I even see Mr. Darian McLeod sitting out there, and he's currently working in District 1 to create a space for art in District 1. I had a chance to sit in Southern Pottery recently in the Noma community, and as I sat in and I saw the students coming in for class, that helped to mold my perception of what art brings to the city. I saw people from all different backgrounds, gender, race, coming in there, coming together to unite. And that's one of the things that's been a concern for District 1 is bringing people together. And that is one of the things that art allows us to do is come together in as different people for the same goal, and that's bringing creativity and beauty to our city. Some of the things in terms of a vision, more opportunities for artists to be seen, creating more visual spaces for art, expanding our city rosters so that we have a more complete list of artists that are out there in the city, more support for the contemporary arts, that's through donations, and like Ms. Tina said, more funding from the city. We also need more retail shops for artists to sell their work. We may have to look at lowering those taxes because that's a big concern for some of the retail artists. But that's my vision in a nutshell. I could go on and on. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. And as Mr. Tyler is set to come here, I should note that both Ms. Williams and Ms. Herbert there are only two District 1 candidates here tonight. For those who may be in the audience or who may be streaming online, District 1 is currently held by Councilman Sam Davis, who is retiring after 23 years. So Ms. Williams and Ms. Herbert are gunning for that seat, which is in the northern part of our city. Sorry, John. Yep.
My name is John Tyler. I am running for City Council seat at large, and my perception of how the arts have progressed, especially within the past year. If you look, even though we've had a social unrest over the things that have happened in the past year, I've called it somewhat of a renaissance. Once again, we've had artists pop up everywhere. You have people like Miss Aja Charles, who painted beautiful murals on the side right here on Main Street. She has pictures hanging up off of the Main Street Library, and she has pictures also painted up in West Colombia as well. And with that being said, that shows you the progression of our city. So for the next 5 to 10 years, what we need to do is employ more artists like her to take some of these dilapidated buildings, if we don't want to tear them down and make them historic maybe, get people like her to revitalize them, hire more local graphic designers instead of outsourcing, get more local architects. And as far as the city is concerned with cultural arts for the next 5 to 10 years, I see us doing something like maybe in Chicago, where we hold events, maybe an event like here in the Koger Center, take one of those days out of that event and hold that as a free day for underprivileged children. Because why should people that pay type of experience when we have children in these underprivileged neighborhoods that can be our next architect, that could be our next Aja Charles, that could be our next Steve Benjamin, that can be our next Tamika Devine, that can even be our next John Tyler. So for what I see for us in the next 5 to 10 years, let's invest not only in our children, but in our arts and culture, and for our people as well, and make it more homegrown instead of outsourcing things. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Aditi Bustles, and I'm running for the at-large seat. My perception of art in Colombia is that it's a way for us to preserve the rich history of our city, but it's also a way for us to push forward our thinking of what's possible. When I first moved here, I immediately got immersed in different arts and cultural events because I found that arts connect people, regardless of what corner of the city that you're from. Art is something that we all consume or we create. And so over the last several years, it's been wonderful to see us provide a platform to so many different artists. And I know some of the other guests here have referred to some of those wonderful things, but I don't want to lose sight of other types of art as well, such as our ballet, such as visual design, such as some of the immersive experiences that have been created, such as film. There are so many wonderful things happening. My vision goes back to why I care so much about art. I grew up in a family of artists. My name was actually given to me because of a Smithsonian art exhibit in DC. Adi means beginning and Ithi means end. And my vision for Colombia is that we have a place where artists can go in the city, where they get the resources, the infrastructure, and the capacity that they need in order to be able to sustain their work and give and share their work with us. We have a lot of amazing things going on, but I'm not quite sure if we have a clear understanding of how much we're spending on art. What needs to happen in order to help our young artists and choose to stay here in Colombia? What are the different grant opportunities out there? I am all for us creating a cultural policy or some sort of formal entity that helps us in making sure we move our arts and culture community forward. Thank you.
It's actually high enough. Hi, I'm Heather Bauer. I'm running for city council at large. I moved here in 2007 to study art history at USC, and I not only attended art events, but I was running them from day one. I had the opportunity to be on the Artista Vista, ran Artista Vista for several years. I ran the Nickelodeon Theater, Indie Grits. I ran an art gallery. I actually did a fundraiser for the SC Philharmonic on this very stage. But what I know is that that's not always accessible to people. So part of the plan that I know that's already in place that One Columbia has been working on is getting art out into the communities, into 29203, into cultural centers, like Mama G does at her Peace Center over by Olympia 701 Whaley. And then from my experience running art galleries, running art crawls, running festivals in the city, it's hard. It's hard to get the permits that you need. So my plan is to make it more simple. We can have all the plans in the world, but if we're going to trip over ourselves and make it difficult for people to get the job done, we're not helping each other. So my day job, I'm a project manager. I'm all about removing obstacles. And then I also have the art side. I've been working in the arts, working with artists for 14 years. So I think if we can remove some of these barriers, we can even take it further than we are now. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Tyler Bailey. I'm running for city council at large. I'm from Colombia, and while I was sitting down, I couldn't help but think that my first time coming to the Koger Center was when I was a kid on a field trip to see the Nutcracker. The arts has always been an instrumental part of my life, and I think the greatest thing about Colombia is that we have a true passion, and we want the arts to be accessible to all. I think the accessibility where we're at today is good, but it could always be better. And my vision for arts is really what I want to narrow in on. The city does a lot for the arts and culture community as a whole, but I believe that we need to really step up and have some leadership in the arts. Funding is very important. We do need to fund the arts more, but our relationship with culture and the arts needs to extend beyond being transactional. And we need to execute some leadership, and artists should be incentivized just like we incentivize developers. Colombia, with our thriving arts community, really has the opportunity to be a hub for artists and one of the most creative cities in this country and this state. But if we're going to do that, the city has to step up and do other things outside of funding. For example, just like there's a Department of Parks and Recreation, there should be a Department of Arts and Culture, I believe. And even outside of that, there should be distinctive proposals to help artists stay in Colombia. If they want to buy houses in our historical neighborhoods, there should be incentives for artists to have mortgages, get in these houses, renovate these houses, capitalizing on our greatest assets of our people and our artists should be a priority for the city. If anybody's been to Austin, you know the slogan, keep Austin weird. That keeps people in Austin, that's distinctive for Austin. And what Columbia needs, I believe, and the arts community brings to it is an opportunity for us to distinguish us from Greenville, from Charleston, from other regional cities, if we really execute some leadership and help our arts community be a beacon of light for arts in this entire state. Thank you.
Like you, Heather, you're tall, I'm a little short, so I have to actually pull the microphone down. Good evening. My name is Deetra Stover Matthews, and I am running for Columbia City Council at large. I was born and raised right here in Columbia, South Carolina. I am a product of Richland School District 1, proud product of Richland School District 1. My perception of our art community here in Columbia, South Carolina is that it is vibrant, it is innovative, and it is adaptable. We have seen what the art community has done in the past. We continue to see how they adapt to the challenges of today. I'm grateful for our arts community, the vibrancy, the innovation, and the adaptability. Now, when I think about access, I think about me as a little girl peeling out of my parents' Buick at Greenview Park and putting on my leotard and carrying my tap dancing shoes. I go one way, my two brothers go another way, and my mom at the same exact time is taking a pottery class. That's the way I see access to our art community. Now, I had the opportunity to read the One Columbia Amplify Arts Plan, all 70-something pages of it, and I'm so grateful for the intentionality of it. It's so comprehensive. And so my vision for the arts community is to be in complete concurrence to that work that has already been done. Now, what I got out of the plan is, one, create policies within the city government that defines solid and healthy growth. Two, increase the investment in the local arts agency so that it is qualified to apply for more state, regional, and federal funding. Three, develop neighborhood plans for arts and culture.
That's time. That's time.
Thank you.
I'll let you fudge it. I'll let you fudge it for a good 10 seconds there. Yeah, 2 minutes is 2 minutes is not a lot to tell about the future of this city. Mr. Krangle?
I'm John Krangle, a college professor and attorney who lived in Colombia for over 40 years. Most recently, I've been involved in dealing with the art of corruption at the State House. And one of my neighbors is now in state prison as a consequence of that, Jim Harrison. The two concrete ideas, I agree that with the other candidates, they made some excellent points. The two concrete ideas that I have, one is to have the city buy the Five Points Theater, which is currently closed. It's a bar. It's for sale now for $1.2 million. And I think the city ought to buy it, renovate it, and make it into a small venue, theater, children's theater, dance, and so on. There's another location, the old Black movie theater right across from Allen on Hardin Street. It's owned by Allen University right now. I talked to the president a couple of years ago about that. We need to look seriously at the idea of using the city funding and maybe some other grant money we can get from federal sources to renovate that movie theater and put it back into shape. That would be a very good small venue location in black community that could be available to children and students at Allen and Benedict and other people as well. I'm not an expert in the arts. I coached 3 different sports and I played 5 different sports. That's what I know as far as arts is concerned. I can't play a musical instrument, but I know that arts are very important, and I think we could do those 2 concrete things I suggested in order to increase accessibility to the arts in the city of Columbia. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go on to the next question, programming note, if Lee hasn't already said it, I believe it's next Tuesday here at this Koger Center and also streaming through WIS. One Columbia is hosting a mayoral forum for the 4 mayoral candidates, and the great Judy Gadsden is moderating that one. So programming note, September 8th, 7 p.m. here at the Koger Center, the mayoral forum will go on, sponsored by One Columbia and WIS. This next one, I'm not going to go in any order, but I'd like all 8 to step up and say it. This is just I'm going to have several just short questions. So then I'm going to pepper through the night. And this is the first one. And again, I'm not going to go in order, just step up when you're ready. Giving the title only, what is your favorite movie?
No explanation?
Nope, giving the title only.
What's love have to do with it? Tina Herbert running for District 1.
Yep. Tina.
Boys in the Hood, and I'm John Tyler running for City Council, Seat at Large.
Rest in peace, John Singleton, the great John Singleton. Yep.
You're going in order. The namesake, Dr. Oddity Bustles, City Council at Large.
Beautiful minds Krista Williams, running for Columbia City Council, District 1.
Dumb and Dumber, Heather Bauer, running for Columbia City Council at large.
Tyler Bailey, again, City Council at large. Indiana Jones, The Last Crusader.
Tyler Bailey, winner of the 2021 at-large election. Congratulations.
That's really tough. Deetra Matthews, Columbia City Council at large. My favorite movie is Princess and the Frog.
On the waterfront with Marlon Brando, because I think of myself as being like him.
Fantastic. Great. I literally love every answer that was given. As diverse as this race, the answers were as diverse as this race. So it's awesome. Back to some of our primary questions here. As I'm sure each candidate knows, the City of Columbia directs a portion of its annual revenues from the hospitality tax to support many of the city's arts organizations, cultural festivals, and so on. So that's how we do it now. Do you believe that it's important that there be a reliable and equitable source of public funding for the arts? And if so, how do you propose to grow or maintain the amount of available funding for arts organizations? So I'll say again, do you believe that it's important that there be a reliable and equitable source of public support for the arts? And if so, how do you propose to maintain or grow the amount of available funding for arts organizations? And if you don't, tell us why not.
Tyler Bailey, again, City Council at large. To answer your question, yes, I do believe it's important for the arts to have a sustainable funding source. One, the arts is a huge economic driver in the city. And what it does is tourists come here, they spend more money when they're participating in the arts, whether they're buying tickets, they're traveling here, staying at hotels, they're buying food, they're buying drinks, and that in turn puts dollars back into the arts community, but also other businesses and vendors in the city. And so the more we incentivize artists in the arts to bring more people here, the more dollars come into the community, the arts community, and the more funding they'll get because the money goes right back to HTAX funding. So it's a symbiotic relationship. It's very important because the arts is really what makes Columbia great. And we got to further incentivize artists in the arts community for our city to grow, because what the arts is really a reflection of how we view our city and what type of environment we want to live in. Thank you.
Thank you.
I talk with my hands, so I take it off. So absolutely, I think it's vital for us to have public funding to support the arts. As I said earlier, arts is what connects us, it preserves our history, and it ensures that we move our thinking forward. It also builds pride. It makes us wake up every day to be proud of where we live, work, and play. And so we absolutely need to look at sustainable funding resources. How do we do that? Well, the HTAX is just one avenue. One way we can continue to do that is to attract more businesses that would pay into the HTAX, right? Businesses are interested in seeing arts do well because arts equal well-being of their employees. It equals happiness. It equals satisfaction of living somewhere. So we need to retain and recruit new small businesses to our city to improve the revenue that we have with HTAX. And then I would say we need to provide an infrastructure to apply to all of these amazing public foundations and the opportunities they provide, whether it's the National Endowment or it's the Doris Duke Foundation. Artists need help. They need help navigating those things sometimes. They're very bureaucratic, and I think the city could really play a role to help assist even first-time grant applicants to make sure that they have access to all of the rich resources that are available on a state and federal level.
Thank you.
Tina Herbert, running for District 1, and I absolutely do believe that we need a reliable, equitable source to continue to fund the arts. And I think that we have to realize that hospitality dollars are a limited resource. One of the things, and I believe one of the recommendations from the Amplify, is to make One Columbia our arts agency, which will then allow us to get a lot more funding. And funding is going to be very critical so that we can fund a lot of different programs, more programs than we're able to do now. But in addition to that, sustainability is also just as important. When I worked with the City of Columbia and OBO, we did a pilot program called the Indie Ground. And we worked with a gentleman, he's a gospel rapper, Red. I don't know if y'all know Big Red. And it's so funny because he went to Wake Forest, I think, for business school. And he came home and said, Dad, I really want to be a gospel rapper. But he's on the radio station now. And I had him, the complaint was that we don't have a good ecosystem. We don't have people here in Columbia who really understand the music industry, the radio industry. They don't know how to buy airtime. They don't know how to do radio interviews. So we commissioned him to do a 4-part series to just teach other people right here in Columbia, because everyone can't fly to Atlanta and they can't fly to LA to get these types of skills. So he sat down and over 4 sessions talked about different things. How do you copyright or trademark your work? But we have to continue to do things that help with the artists and build their sustainability. And the last thing that I will say, in addition to tourism, we have to understand how this plays into our whole ecosystem. When my daughter was in ballet, we used to go to I had to buy a lot of expensive ballet stuff from, I think it was Turnaround Roundabout on Forest Drive. When I played the violin, I went down to Star Music and 5 Points. So arts are not only about the artists, but it's about the suppliers who help them do what they do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Herbert.
Hey everybody, Heather Bauer, again running for Columbia City Council at large. So from my experience writing grants, which helped develop the Helen Hill Education Center at the Nickelodeon, grant writing is very cumbersome and you have to have a lot of data. So one thing I would want to do, so to answer your question really quickly, yes. First, getting data and helping nonprofits in the city keep track of data. We know we need beds on heads, we need the information to get HTACs to apply for grants. So that's very cumbersome on nonprofits to do. And for artists to do, to know their impact to apply for these things. So definitely help with grant writing. That is, I think, vital. HTACs, what I would like to see happen is continuously investing in new nonprofits and equitability in artists. So sponsoring 3 or 4 groups or artists each year. And of course, helping them make them sustainable, helping them with grant writing, helping them with operations. From what I know, running a nonprofit, it's more difficult than running a business, and I have done both. So having that arm in order to support them. And then what I also haven't heard yet is, new business here is fantastic, but I want them to buy into our culture in our city. So I want a certain percentage that they invest into public art on their facades or a piece of sculpture or whatever that looks like. I want to see businesses buy into our city and make sure they're invested long-term. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bauer.
Deetra Matthews, Columbia City Council at large. My answer, Chris, is yes. I do believe that funding should be a reliable, equitable source. Understanding how the HTAC works and a portion of it having our arts community compete with these dollars, I think needs a lot of work. I am the CEO of a local nonprofit called the RAM Foundation. We are a small local organization that's been in existence for 13 years. We offer a free summer camp right here in Columbia, South Carolina. Our children get the chance to choose 2 art programs because we center the arts in our programming every single year. Our children get the chance to be exposed to ballet, karate, drums, piano, violin, even the industrial arts. And we've been doing this for 13 years. And I will tell you
getting funding as a small local organization, making that big of an impact has always been very, very difficult. So I think we actually have to look at the process. I know that some of our larger legacy organizations understand how that process works, but as a small organization like the RAM Foundation, we are built upon the hands of volunteers. We don't have paid staff. We don't have individuals to understand what that looks like and travel and navigate through those challenges of receiving some of these HTAC dollars. And finally, I think that we can create a trust, create an arts trust. I think that that will address some of those inequitable issues. And also as we respond to the pandemic here and how some of our local artists have been struggling right now, I think having a arts trust would actually address that issue as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews.
I'm Krista Williams, running for Columbia City Council for District 1. And for more public funding for the arts, as I stated earlier, more opportunities for artists to be seen. When we have live performances, when we have public programs, when we have school programs that incorporate art and allow artists an opportunity to show their work, tourists to come in and purchase their work. We have an art center over on Taylor Street. There's something that is in the regulation with the building. Those artists in the city cannot sell their items at that art center, and that's a city art center. So as I stated before, creating those opportunities, those public opportunities, more art crawls, as the young man stated when he was up, utilizing existing buildings to have community performances. We have an auditorium over at the Warlord's apartment in the Elmwood community that's not being utilized. That's an area of opportunity to allow artists to come in, to allow people from around the state, maybe even other states, to come and look at our artists' work, to get involved. And as I stated, ensuring that we incorporate this into the school as well, allowing children to create art that can be sold. Create the retail galleries. I stated earlier about the taxes. Some of the galleries have closed down because of the property taxes. So that's an area that we can evaluate to make art, creating art and having art spaces more attainable for artists. Have any more time left? Okay, so in summary, public funding is just creating those opportunities. This facility here, having live performances and bringing people together to fund the artists of our city.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Mr. Stringer is a taskmaster on that time down there. He keeps those cards moving.
Thank you. Public funding for the arts culture is something that I feel like is major, but like Sister Tina Hubbard said, that is, the HTAC can't be the only crutch for our arts program. So I think what we need to do is take a look, like they say, at the numbers and where the gap is in the funding and where do we really need to direct it from, and take more incentives and hold, yes, more art crawls, and hold, yes, more things like Soda City. We can hold them like we have on Main Street. How about let's hold a Soda City on the same Saturday in Rosewood, and then collect the funding and collect the taxes from there, and then see where we need to divvy out or reassess or move those funds as far as the alt culture is concerned. We have a lot of children here that are very talented, so therefore we need to look out for their best interests because they are the future of our city. We have to understand that that is the kingdom to come. So when we look into the arts culture, we have to make sure that the funding really needs to go towards the school more so than the people instead ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you.
The ability of the city to raise revenue by taxation is very limited by the General Assembly. I think we need to look at private sources. One thing we could do is set up a city endowment for the arts and solicit private donations from people in the community. We have a lot of people in Columbia who have lots of money, okay? And they could be doing a lot more philanthropic type of activities. And I could mention a few names, but I'm not going to at this time, but you know who I'm talking about, right? Universities and other institutions, hospitals, have endowments. People donate from their RMD, or they donate from their estate, and that money is the revenue generated by the interest and dividends from that endowment fund is used as a stream of revenue that can be support the activities of the organization. We could do the same thing here in the city of Columbia and use the proceeds from the endowment to help finance the arts.
Thank you, Mr. Kringle. I should have said this earlier. If you're in this auditorium or if you're watching at home, taking your time this evening, I'm guessing you know this, but these at-large candidates here tonight, they're running citywide. They're not district. They run all over the city, just like the mayor. So they are citywide candidates. That's for anybody here or watching at home. Let's do a couple little short answers here. This is by show of hands. By show of hands. Raise your hand if you have a public library card. Would you raise your hand if you have a public library card? A library membership, like a membership at the public library? Yes, sir. Okay, there you go. I believe all hands were raised, I do believe. Okay, thank you. And another short answer that I want to get to. And again, you can come in whatever order you want on this one. We'll do an order on the next question, but whatever order you want on this one. Who is your favorite musician, songwriter, or musical group? Your favorite musician, songwriter, or musical group?
Despite all the controversy, Michael Jackson, I actually listen to him before I do any writing whatsoever.
Wow.
I've actually been listening to a lot of Hillsong lately. So right now in my life, that's my favorite.
Thank you.
I'm probably going to butcher their name, but they're a group from Texas called Krumungan. Kind of like soul, funk, I don't know, at Krughin. Look them up.
That's it. Look it up on Spotify.
Oddity Bustles at large. I'm going to credit my husband for this one, Toro y Moi, and it is a Columbia, South Carolina musician that is killing it.
I actually like the rapper Common. He incorporates politics, art, and some of everything into his music.
Chicago's very own Common.
The late Tony Williams, the jazz drummer, he's my late brother-in-law.
Huh.
All my life, I would have to say Mary J. Blige because I was a teenager in the 90s. But locally, I have to also give a shout out to Big Red.
Awesome.
Tyler Bailey again, City Council at Large. This is a real tough question. I would have to say Marvin Gaye or Bob Marley and the Wailers, but I will say Beyonce Knowles is a distant cousin of mine, so I like her as well.
Awesome, okay. Covering all, you're running at large, covering all districts with his answer. And we'll start this one, since you had Mary J. Blige, we'll want to know the 411 from you, Tina. We'll start down there with Tina and come this way on this question. This is back to one of our primary questions. Do you feel that the arts are an integral part of this city's daily life and development? And where do you feel that the arts and cultural community can best contribute to the growth of Columbia? So again, that's, do you feel that the arts are an integral part of the city's daily life and development? And where do you think that the arts and cultural community can best contribute to the city's growth?
So, of course, absolutely, yes, I do believe that the arts community is integral to the daily life of Columbia. It was integral to my life. And I literally tell people, personally, I had never heard of St. Augustine's College. And so for me, a little known fact, and I met my daughter's father at St. Augustine's College. So if you see how significant one music teacher telling me about a college that I had never heard of, my child may not be here today. So it's integral to people's lives, those who invested, especially those who've invested into our lives. And if y'all wonder why I keep saying that, because legendary Freddie Grace is no longer here. And every time I get to talk about him, I know he's like, I cannot believe that Tina Herbert has really done something, or is trying to do something these days. But how can it help grow? It can help us grow the city. Again, I always think about the economics of it. A lot of people just focus on the artists themselves, but they contribute to our entire economy. When you think about the use of this facility, the caterers that have to come in, there is a complete ecosystem, economic ecosystem associated with the arts. And so we have to continue to invest in it so that it can continue to grow and include, add additional businesses. I think the bigger thing that we can do, and I always think that we can help them more, is really from the nonprofits perspective, minority artists, and people who don't have as much exposure. My history or my experiences show me they aren't as familiar with the grant applications. They don't have years of experience. So I'm more concerned about how can I help them build their capacity so that they can really compete for the funding that is out there.
Thank you, Ms. Herbert.
For the first part of your question, yes, absolutely. Art contributes to every day of our life. If we look to the left, right, or behind us or do a 360 turn, art is all around us. The people that design this building are artists. Ways that I think that artists can contribute from an environmental perspective. Those of you that may have been following me or know anything about me, I'm big on conservation and cleaning up, cleaning up our earth. And recyclable art is really something that I have been talking with many artists in the city about, is developing a plan, getting with the recycling center here in the city to conserve, to create less waste and create art from some of those ways. Some of you may know some of the recyclable artists within the city. They're wonderful people. They are taking old K-cups that we throw in the trash and think nothing about and creating beautiful designs and patterns of other things. Our National Geographic newspapers that we throw, or magazines we throw away, they are taking those and creating beautiful art with those items. So a big way that I would love to see artists contribute to the city of Columbia is more of recycling, recyclable art, and working with our city recycling to create less waste.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
My name is John Tyler. I'm running for City Council seat at large. And yes, I do believe that art is an everyday part of our lives. And how can we make it better here in Columbia is by, I'm an avid gamer myself. I'm part of what you call the geek culture. I participated in quite a few Comic-Cons here, and I feel like more events and more ways of people expressing their artistic identities like that, more things like that can help stimulate the economy. That can also, like I said, pull the extra funding maybe from the taxes that we see coming off this type of revenue. We need to look into maybe even opening back up once, we get past COVID, of course, opening back up Finley Park and having theaters there on the weekends for the homeless, and for even with the homeless out there, for the homeless themselves and for the underprivileged families. There's many things we can do art-wise to contribute on an everyday scale, because like I said, we have many local graphic designers, we have many local architects here that we can employ and get them the funding they need to help beautify the city and the plans that the city has had for these certain areas for the last 10 years that we haven't seen. Maybe we can employ some of these people and get the job done a lot faster. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tyler.
Aditi Basul, City Council at Large. Absolutely. And I've covered some of the ways in which art plays a vital component in our city and our culture, and I'll touch on them again. They create pride. The arts make us feel like we belong, we're home. I'm trained in Indian classical dancing. That was one of the best ways that I was able to connect to my heritage growing up. And I've seen how the lessons I've learned from being a dancer has helped me connect with my home here in Columbia. And so we need to continue to create opportunities where people feel like they belong, either by, again, consuming or creating art. To answer the second part of that question, we're already doing it. We have people like Jared Johnson in the audience, who is commissioning a Black Lives Matter mural. We have the Columbia Ballet director that's been in our city for decades, bringing in revenue. We have Ome that's with Frame by Frame, that's been bringing in amazing indie films that are talking about topics that are really hard to discuss, but we talk about it over art. So our role really is to amplify those efforts, make sure that people have the infrastructure, they have the pathways to take advantage of the many opportunities that exist, not only on a city level, but a state and federal level as well. It is our role to make things easier for artists to share their work with us, no matter what medium that may be in. The city has a real responsibility to make sure that we are cultivating growth in our city, and artists can help us do that because they want to stay here. They want to preserve our history. They want to share their talent with us. And I can't think of a better way for us to think about smart, equitable growth than something like art that really equalizes so many things in our community.
Thank you, Ms. Busses.
Hi, I'm Heather Bauer, running for City Council at large. So should it be? Yes. Do I think it is completely in Columbia? Not necessarily. I think we have a lot of opportunity to make it better. And what I would do is I want artists at the table. I had a lot of great conversations in the lobby before we came in here, but I think we should have artists at the table in every facet of our government. Economic development, city planning. We know that artists look at things differently from a different lens that I could never do as a council person. And oftentimes artists are flexible, they're resourceful. So they're gonna have different points of view that we could never have on council. And a good example of this, again, talking with folks out in the lobby, is the architecture that we see in the buildings that are being built in Columbia. I think we can do a lot better. And I talked to a lot of, serving on the Columbia Design League, we have world-renowned architects serving on the architecture board or council in the city. But by the time they get to their table, they have a choice of two color of whites to choose. That doesn't allow the kind of culture that we want to create. When you walk down the street, people they don't drive to Charleston to look at high-rise apartment buildings. They go there because it's beautiful. And we want the same type of feeling when we walk down the streets of Columbia. Public art, beautiful architecture, but that requires having artists at the table from ground zero. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bauer.
Tyler Bailey, running for City Council at large. To answer that question first, yes, art plays a crucial role in our everyday community here. It's really the lifeblood of the city. And if you ever think about a memory that you have going out with your family to the movies or going to a play, art is what enriches it and what makes you remember it. I'm thinking I was sitting right over there with my uncle and my Aunt Rose, who I'd never been out with in my life, but we went to go see the Book of Mormon here a couple years ago. It was a great experience. And I cherish that memory with me today. My uncle was in his late 80s, but we went out one time and was to go see the Book of Mormon. So art plays a crucial role with the driving of our economy and the growth of the city. And like I said earlier, the relationship the city has had with art and the arts community has been largely transactional. I think artists need to come to the table and we need to have a culture plan that coincides with the city's growth plan and make sure that the arts community is growing and thriving and helping increase our brand here in Columbia, because we need a distinguishing factor that's going to allow us to keep our young talent. It's going to allow us to recruit talent. And it's also going to allow us to keep our thriving artists. A good friend of mine is a great artist by the name of Cool Peace. He's from Columbia, but he's left here. He went to Savannah. Now he's in New York because he feels like that he's in other communities that better support him as an artist. We have to support our artists more. We need to incentivize our artists just like we incentivize developers. And the growth plan of the city should coincide with a culture plan that is led by artists at the table to make sure our city is growing in a way and our arts community is thriving. And that's going to help distinguish us from other cities in the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey.
Deidre Stover Matthews, candidate for Columbia City Council at large. I believe life is art. I have looked in the eyes of children as a former educator. I've looked in the eye of a little boy, 12 years old, who only see in his future prison. I've looked in those same two eyes, and I expose him to the art, and he sees a future much different. I believe that art can save our lives. Now, I have a daughter who is in the 10th grade at Midlands Arts Conservatory right now. She was born with spina bifida, hydrocephalus, and Arnold-Chiari type 2 malformation. I have spent her entire life trying to prove the doctors wrong. They said that she would never eat. They said that she would never talk. They said that she would never walk. She can walk in here today. She eats just fine. And I truly believe that beyond our faith, beyond our belief in Christ, beyond the work of all the specialists and subspecialists who have poured into my daughter, it was art who made her believe that she can express herself exactly the way and who she is. Art saves people's lives. Art is saving my daughter's life right now. Thank you.
Thank you. You sure? Okay. Mr. Kringle has declined comment on this question. Got some questions from the audience here. We're gonna go with 1 minute on it. Can you do 1 minute, Mr. Stringer? All right. And I'm gonna start. We've been coming this way, Mr. Kringle. We'll start here. What plans or visions for diversity in the arts in Colombia might you have, specifically as it relates to leadership and administration? Yes, sir. And I'll repeat as you go up. What are your plans or visions for diversity in the arts in Colombia, specifically in leadership and administration?
Well, I think in the arts, talent wins out. The most talented people in the arts will rise to the top, and it will provide diversity. You have males and females, black, white, Asians who excel in the arts. So I think that's a problem that's going to resolve itself based on talent and performance.
Thank you, Mr. Kringle. Yes, ma'am, certainly. What are your plans and visions for diversity in the arts in Colombia, specifically in the realm of leadership and administration?
Well, I think I mentioned this first. I think we have to take a different look at how we have allocated our funding. I think we have to be a bit more intentional and a bit more investigative. We have a lot of diversity in the city of Colombia. We have a lot of people doing some great things, but we have to be a bit more deliberate with the way we allocate our funding. Now, one of the ways I think that we can do that, as a former military spouse, my husband just retired after serving 25 years. We have lived all over this country. We have lived in so many different cities. And the cities that I have seen that has been thriving the most have been the cities that have embraced the vibrancy of arts. And one of the ways that they do that is taking a different look at what economic development looks like. Economic development looks to them, and I think has the opportunity to look here today, is having an arts district where individuals literally live together, work together, worship together, work together, all because of the interest of arts, an array of arts. And then I think that that would provide the avenue where you have cross-pollination, where we can embrace the IT industry.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews. Thank you.
Tyler Bailey, Columbia City Council at Large. I'm running for that seat. And the first thing that we need to do to make sure, one, that the leadership of arts is diverse, and a plan I would have is first we need to make sure there's some art leadership that's actually sponsored in conjunction with what the city is doing. Right now, there's plenty of leaders in the arts community, but the city does not have a department dedicated for arts and culture. So we need to have a department that's dedicated for arts and culture, number one, and we need to have a cultural plan for the city. And the people who create this plan need to be members who have contributed greatly to the arts community, but are diverse members of the arts community, not just in race, gender, age, ethnicity, religion, socioeconomic status, but also in the medium of art that they practice in, whether it's ballet, whether it's theater, whether it's painting. we need to make sure the art cultural policy is created by a diverse group, and that policy is adopted by city council, the cultural plan is adopted by city council, and the leadership is actually executed in projects that the city completes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey.
Thank you for the question. Heather Bauer, again, running for city council at large. So from my experience being in leadership in nonprofits, art nonprofits in Colombia, and I see some of the longest standing running leaders within arts organizations here tonight, our bench is not very deep in Colombia. So I think we need to do a lot of training. And a lot of what I did at the Nickelodeon Theater before starting the Helen Hill Education Center, we did a lot of traveling. We visited other cities and towns and had mentors across the country to help develop more talent and leadership within the city, within that organization, other nonprofits I was at. So I think definitely investing in training, to invest in our new leadership, up and coming leadership is very, very important. Another thing I want to see is absolutely commit to equitability when it comes to HTAX and other forms of funding. We talked about that earlier, about grants and other sources of funding that we have. And not just cater to the typical Western sensibilities that we tend to see within the arts, but making sure that we are investing and having equal funding for those.
Thank you, Ms.
groups.
Bauer.
Thank you.
About 2 months ago, I had the opportunity to host an art-related event at City Art, where a graphic designer of color designed a very unique piece for our campaign. I'm the only candidate that's actually hosted an art-related event because I do believe it's especially important for us to amplify artists, especially during this time where their work is suffering because of the pandemic. When it comes to diversity, it comes down to we need to ensure that every decision-making table, not just every table, but every decision-making table, and the Amplify Columbia plan details many different committees, many different transition plans to lead towards the Office of Arts and Culture. We need to make sure that it's representative of the entire city in terms of different perspectives, backgrounds, color, gender, sexual orientation, you name it. It's important for us to have folks that actually have decision-making ability at all of those points. Only then I think we can advance a very inclusive agenda or vision for Columbia as we think about what the next 5, 10, 15 years look like for our city.
Thank you, Ms. Bustles.
One of the first things, well, first off, I'm John Tyler, I'm running for City Council, Seat at Large. But one of the first things we can do is invest in more nonprofit organizations that hold these type of programs during the summer. That way we can be assured that we reach those underprivileged children and make sure that they can have the same type of experience. Nonprofit organizations like Ms. Matthews and One Common Cause and Empower SC and even Every Black Girl. These are the type of nonprofit organizations that are actually out in the community when we ourselves, whether it's me sitting on the seat or one of my constituents sitting on the seat, if we can't get out there ourselves, we need to look into the organizations that are out there that are invested into the arts culture and help them build the city artistically and culturally into this social infrastructure that we're really looking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tyler.
I want to first say that leadership is an art. Leadership is a skill of art that many of us work every day to master. And part of that is listening and taking care of the people. We've heard many of the candidates talk about our different perspectives and what we'll bring to the table. So ensuring that you all out in the audience and all of the voters that are listening is that you are electing individuals who will be inclusive of all communities in Columbia, South Carolina, to include artists. And as Oddity said, from everybody from every social, economical background, making sure that our art represents the globe. You know, that we have Hispanic artists, we have Native Americans, East Indian, all of those things are important. So to sum up in leadership, listening and ensuring that we're being inclusive and bringing artists to the table to ensure that we are fulfilling their needs as a council and as a city.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
Tina Herbert, running for District 1. In order to diversify our leadership and administration with the arts, I think that we have to apply some of the similar principles that I applied when I worked at the city in the OBO office. And my sole job, one of my primary jobs, was to diversify the spending of city dollars and to make sure that the city was not just providing contracts with one particular group, but that we were making sure that we give opportunities to everyone. So how do we do that? First of all, I agree with someone who said you must be intentional. And we do have ways that we can hold people accountable. For instance, if they're receiving hospitality dollars, do we have a requirement that says, show us how you have diversity in your leadership and your administration? The other part of that is we have to make sure that people are using good faith efforts and not just filling out paperwork. Because what we have to realize is a lot of the communities that we consider diversity communities, they don't have the exposure, they're intimidated, they don't understand what to say or what to do. So we really have to create a culture that is welcoming to different people from different backgrounds who do different things.
Thank you much, Ms. Herbert. And I do thank folks for giving us questions from the audience as well. This one's a little different. This one marries the different kind of things the city does with arts. And we just started with Mr. Krangle there. We'll start this time with Ms. Herbert on that end. How would you work to ensure livable streets, like pedestrian and bicycle type things, that encourage cultural activity and support creative business? Again, how would you work to ensure livable streets that encourage cultural activity and support creative business? Yeah, we're going to start with Ms. Herbert, and we're going to come your way. Yep. That's my fault. I was unclear. We're going to start at that end and come this way. Yep.
And just so I'm clear, what's the last part?
Yes, ma'am. How would you work to ensure livable streets that encourage cultural activity and support creative businesses?
Creative businesses?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And this is 1 minute or 2 minutes?
We'll stay with one. We'll stay with one.
Okay.
We're getting toward the witching hour. Yep.
So my 1 minute starts now.
Yes.
So I would strongly encourage, I believe, and I'm an advocate for bike lanes, and what I kind of envision is my daughter and I used to ride bikes up and down the sidewalk, because we're not supposed to be there, but if we could get some bike lanes, no, seriously, but we didn't have a bike lane. But imagine if you could ride your bike like we used to do to the library. And now we can ride and look at some of these murals. And what I really appreciate is the ability to go with your children and read and discuss the history or the people, the artists who developed them. I think that's a very workable model. And I think that the more that we're able to do it, then it increases the likelihood that we'll have more opportunities to do it. And that creates that creative cycle.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
One of the first things as a council we all should do when we're elected is doing an equity assessment and looking to see where we can use funding to expand some of the sidewalks in the neighborhoods. I think that's important just from a safety perspective. We have kids walking home from schools, the sidewalks are running out, they are walking home and cars are blowing the horns at them as if they're wrong. We're wrong as the city. We have to do better. So in looking at that equity assessment and looking at where we can put funding to create more opportunities for sidewalks for our elderly, for our individuals that have seeing vision problems. We have people who are blind. They want to get from place to place and be able to enjoy the arts. So from a safety perspective, yes, we definitely need to expand our sidewalks so we will be able to, sidewalks create that social life. It creates that access to art within our communities.
Thank you, Ms. Williams.
Thank you. My name is John Tyler, once again, running for City Council, City at Large. First and foremost, like Ms. Crystal Williams said, we do need more sidewalks. We do need more bike lanes. I take public transportation a lot. So aside from the children, I'm one of those ones that might be walking on an embankment where there really should be a sidewalk at. Now, the next thing we can look at is a model somewhere just as close to us as Casey, West Columbia, what we call the West Vista District. What you have down State Street is what they consider their arts walk or their arts district. Now, what they've done there is started painting the sidewalks. We can do that with our bike lanes, our bike riding lanes, and our sidewalks as well. Get some of our local artists, just like we have murals that's on the side of the building, let them paint the sidewalks. As you walk on the sidewalks, you can be walking with your children, they could be playing tic-tac-toe, or, skip hop, or even so much so, even on a bad day, looking down at a mural on the sidewalk just might lighten your mood and stimulate your mental health. So I feel like that's something we should look into. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tyler.
Dr. Aditi Bustles, at large. I'm going to put my public health hat on for that question, especially when you talk about the term livable. It means not only that it's walkable, but it's also safe. And in looking at the Bike Pedestrian Advisory Committee's report that was released about a year ago, one of the biggest barriers to us making progress is in terms of the fact that so many streets are owned by multiple entities. One street might be a highway, half of it's owned by the city, half of it's owned by DOT. And I think that's really where we can lend a hand and build coalitions to make sure we're all on the same page about the areas in which traffic studies have been done to make places more walkable and safe. Another way that we can ensure that we have livable streets is by working with businesses. Look at the 1600 block of Main Street. The businesses there have really made that a vibrant, livable street because they benefit from that as well. They see people popping into their businesses because they have a place to walk and window shop. So we need to continue to work with businesses that this is their interest as well to make sure our streets are safe. And then that's time. I could keep talking, but thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bustles.
Heather Bauer, running for Columbia City Council at large. So I'm glad to hear people talking about how we need to work together in order to make these things happen, especially when it comes to city planning, expanding sidewalks, making things more walkable. I've been talking about creating an ad hoc committee between county council, city council, and our state house delegates for years now. And I think it's something as a city council person, we need to really have a bigger vision because it's been mentioned before, it's owned by federal, could be owned by DOT, the county, the city. So we have to work together to have a longer term plan and make sure that we have the funding and get the job done. And of course, making things easier for having things walkable. So removing any kind of barriers, like walking down Hardin Street, there's a fence in between that makes people not be able to walk across the street safely. And people are, obviously Hardin Street's a very dangerous area, so we want to make sure we are focusing on that. And then First Thursday, months ago, we weren't able to have an open beverage walking down the street during First Thursday, so removing barriers like that is a very simple way to get people out walking around and enjoying the events. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I'm Tyler Bailey. I'm running for City Council at large. And a couple things that the city can do to increase making our streets more livable and encouraging creativity is one is taking a look at what the facade project did in 5 points and looking at expanding that to other areas throughout the city that are more inclined for artists and creatives to participate in. Facade project really greatly improved the ability for businesses to have people sitting down, whether they're dining out by like the gourmet shop or other areas. We need to look outside of 5 points and look at expanding a similar measure elsewhere in the city. Another thing is we got to make sure our sidewalks, streets, and roads are safe. I personally know from the legal work that I do that the city spends thousands of dollars every year on trip and fall cases because they're not assessing the safety of the sidewalks and streets. So we got to assess the safety of it. There's a system that they have right now that distinguishes between Department of Transportation, city-owned sidewalks, and private businesses. We could take a look at that, expand our sidewalks for creators, and make sure they're safe for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bailey.
Deetra Stover Matthews, candidate for Columbia City Council at large. You know, when I think about the term livable, sometimes I think that the term is subjective. And the reason I say that is because I think sometimes when we have our visions, particularly when we're talking about making communities more livable by way of it being walkable or bikeable, I have to think that it should not be a one-size-fits-all approach. In fact, what I most love about the Amplified plan is that it puts the voices of the people first. It puts the voices of the community residents first. And while that may be a want and a need in the 29205, that actually may not be the want and need in the 29203. The definition of livable may look and feel different in the 29203 than it does 29205. Now, as a conservationist by profession and as an environmentalist by profession, I would love for us, sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Matthews. Thank you.
I worked on a highway crew in the summer of 1959, 1960, and that's all we did when I worked for the South Dakota Highway Department to repair roads. And we need a lot of road repair in the city of Columbia. Our roads and streets are in really bad shape. And also our street lights are all screwed up, where you have to wait very long periods of time at some of the street lights before they change. So those are two things that I would certainly work on. I also ride a bicycle 5 miles every day. And I know about the problems that you have in riding bicycles in Columbia. And in some ways, it's not a remediable problem. You cannot figure out any way to make riding down Garnets Ferry Road safe on a bicycle, all right? If you're gonna go downtown from where I live over by the VA hospital, you have to go through the back way through Shandon and so on. So bike safety is a very serious problem in the city of Columbia, and I'm not sure there's a whole lot that can be done to make the major thoroughfares safe for bike riders. But I do know we can fix the roads. We can patch the holes in the roads, and that's one of the things I would try to do.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Krangle. Okay, and I think probably have time for one more short answer question. We're going to go, if it's okay, we're going to go 30 seconds on this, 30 seconds. And because we are coming up on time here. But this is short answer. And you can come as you want. What has been your most enlightening experience with the arts in Columbia? What has been your most enlightening experience with the arts in Columbia?
One of my most enlightening experience in the arts in Columbia was within the past 2 years before COVID, when I got to experience some of the Comic-Cons. Like I say, I'm part of the geek culture. So getting to meet a lot of my favorite wrestlers from when I was a child and current TV and movie stars, I think that's something all children should be able to experience, and adults, because those are voters too. Those people that like to dress up like superheroes. So we have to think about those people in retrospect for when we go forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tyler.
30 seconds. My most enlightening experience is being able to, year after year, bring a group of students to the Columbia Museum of Art every single year, bringing a group of students to enjoy the South Carolina 63. Those are my most lightning experiences in Columbia, South Carolina.
And if those that don't know, I'm sure many do, SC63 is Dr. Donaldson's group's civil rights tour, if you will. It is pretty amazing. Sorry, Mr. Bailey.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Tyler Bailey, City Council at Large. My most enlightening experience with the arts would have been probably about a year and a half ago, or maybe shorter than then. I had a tough day at court. I went to Starbucks in the Vista, and I walked in If Art Gallery, and I told Wim that I was looking for some African-American art. And I thought, and specifically from South Carolina, I thought he wouldn't have any. He surprised me and introduced me to a ton of African-American artists from Columbia specifically, from South Carolina and outside of the state. And he just opened my eyes to the quality of great artists that we have here. And I was surprised, and I bought a piece. So that was my most enlightening experience.
Thank you, Tyler.
One of my most enlightening experiences with the art is when I had time to spend with Miss Susan at Mouse House and look at her recyclable art, when I had time to spend with Flavia on her porch in Cottontown and view all of the beautiful recyclable art that she has on her porch. And I had an opportunity to talk to Mr. Darian McLeod about the art opportunities that he's creating on Duke Street in Seminary Ridge. So I was like a kid in a candy store looking at all of the ways that we could conserve our earth, but they all had one common thing that they all wanted, and that was to unite and bring all the communities together for art opportunities. That was enlightening for me.
Tina Herbert, running for District 1. My most enlightening experience is an ongoing experience. I put the violin down about 15 years ago, but I'm a member of a group called the Colombia Writers Alliance. And because my life gets kind of busy sometimes, I only get to go once or twice a year, but every time I go, and I've been in this group for about 20 years, y'all, and been writing the same book for 20 years, but every time I go, they treat me as if I've been coming to every meeting. They want to hear what I'm working on and what stage I'm in, and they just remind me of the creativity that I have in myself.
Thank you, Ms. Herbert.
Heather Bauer, running for at-large. My most enlightening experience was running a program with Shakis Duval at the Helen Hill Education Center when we worked with Benedict College students. We gave them cameras and equipment and a budget, and they were able to create a short film about their lives. And we had a big screening at the Nickelodeon Theater, and it was very moving, and all their families were there. That was definitely the best experience.
Thank you, Ms. Bauer.
Oddity Bustles at large. Personally, my most enlightening experience has to be seeing all of the beautiful street art that is now popping up all over Colombia, the history that it's preserving, and how it's making us think more broadly about what our city is. Professionally, as a public health researcher, it has been being able to use art as a tool in public health. I've been working with kids and families that are highly traumatized and get to work with students that are working with them. And we're doing a photo voice project to capture some of the unintended consequences of COVID. And it's been amazing to see what students in Colombia see through their eyes and their lens and their voice.
Thank you. Mr. Kringle.
The most enlightening experience I had was watching the movie Z, which is based on the Greek dictatorships in the late 1960s and early 1970s. In the movie, it shows every institution and almost every official is corrupt. It prepared me for living in South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Kringle, for staying directly on brand with your answer. Ladies and gentlemen, it is 8:30 exactly. Thank you for letting me moderate this. Thank you for the folks who came in the audience and the folks who are watching on Facebook. I see members of the arts community out here. I think Jared Johnson was mentioned earlier this evening. They himself, Rob Kershaw, Ariel Flowers have been ushering a Black Lives Matter mural at Sweet Temptations Bakery on North Main Street. I think it's in process now, but y'all have to check that out when they're done. If y'all wouldn't mind, a big hand for these folks who've put themselves out there to run for office. Thank you very much, everybody. Please drive safe, be safe. Thank you very much.